We are talking NFL draft winners and losers. This is the QB Lab podcast, the only show in the world dedicated to the greatest position in all of sports, the quarterback position. Like and subscribe. We need those subscribers. We need that love. We need those likes. We got tons of content coming up. Great stuff to talk about right off the bat. Let's cover round one, pick one, the obvious one here. Fernando Mendoza goes to Las Vegas Raiders. No surprise. What I want to talk about here is two items: what he actually brings to the Raiders, and then what the situation is that he's entering into with the Raiders. So he's the most polished quarterback in the class. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, he's big. He's an efficient rhythm passer. He has pretty advanced processing. He's great in the middle of the field. He's great in terms of red zone reliability. There's obviously some question marks, and there always are when you're coming from college, when you've gone from a situation, and we talked about this previously. Zach really talked about this in more depth, but a guy who's so used to going to read one, read two, not necessarily super creative and not necessarily so comfortable with going to his third, fourth, and fifth reads. So I think that's a really big question mark of how he's going to handle that in the NFL. And the situation, I mean, he's going to the Raiders. They're in full rebuild mode. You know, he's the franchise centerpiece pretty much immediately. Whether or not he's going to start immediately, I think there's still question marks there between him and Kirk Cousins, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get on with the show. But I think there is going to also be a lot of pressure for him. Whether he starts right away or if he's on the bench, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. I don't think it's an easy situation for him to go into, but I do think he's going into a really good situation with Cade Klubnik and I would argue a pretty solid coaching staff for a guy coming into a team that was a total disaster.
Yeah, I think the Raiders overall had a really good draft. I think we're going to see a good Kubiak turnaround. Now, in a previous episode, I said that this Raiders team by 2027 is a team to watch. I think Mendoza is who leads them there. But the real question I have for this Raiders offense is how many games do you think Kirk Cousins starts before they go to the era of Mendoza? If it's up to me, I think you start Mendoza right away. I don't think you use your 1.01 pick only to make him watch Kirk Cousins throw the ball. I think you have him learn under Kirk because, as I mentioned earlier, and you've already referenced in this episode, Mendoza's a guy that goes to the first and second read. And we know Kirk Cousins is a full football field quarterback. So he's going to have to learn how Kirk Cousins views the field. And he's going to have to be more like Kirk Cousins than Fernando Mendoza in college if he wants to be the guy that they drafted. Now, the other thing that I think is exciting for the Raiders is they've bolstered that offensive line, which is definitely going to help Mendoza. It's going to help Genty. They've got Brock Bowers as a real downfield threat. But at the wide receiver position, I don't think they're quite there yet. I don't think you've got those passing options for Mendoza to really work with at this point. I think Brock Bowers is going to have himself an incredible season, but the other passing options in this offense, like Mendoza might be in a situation similar to Cam Ward where he might have talent from the 101 position, but he doesn't have many passing options to really, have a great spot on the field.
That's where I'm most concerned because when I look at the quarterback situation, we know what we're getting from Kirk Cousins. You're getting average to above average quarterback play. And with Mendoza, you really have no idea what you're getting. You're likely not going to get top tier quarterback skills, at least in his first year, just because of the situation, because of the team around him. And I think, personally, I actually think they should go with Kirk Cousins to start the season. Maybe people take that as a bold take. It's also very early right now in offseason. So I think I'd like to see the way Mendoza is developing. But personally, they should go with Kirk Cousins to start the season. Let him play at least the first month so that if they have a terrible start to the season, then by the time Mendoza comes in, it's a little lower risk. They don't really have a shot to compete for a playoff position or maybe even play 6 weeks. And then Mendoza comes in. There isn't nearly as much pressure. He can have a much easier rookie season. However, I don't think that the media and the Raiders fans are going to let that happen. I know organizations love to say that they don't listen to the noise, they don't read the news, they're just focused on a game-to-game basis. We all know that that's not the way things really roll, and I think ultimately they're just going to go and start Mendoza day one, and they're going to have Cousins do as much as he can in the background to prepare Mendoza, even though they know full well he should not be starting. So I do think they should start Cousins day one, but I think Mendoza is going to start day one just because of pressure.
Story to watch that nobody's talking about and nobody should be talking about is Sawyer Robertson, because the Raiders are likely signing him onto the team, at least in the practice squad. And from our pick from last episode, he's the Tyler Shuck of this year's draft. So no one's going to be watching him, and no one should be. But a high ceiling quarterback like Sawyer Robertson, you got to keep an eye on.
100%. So, other quarterbacks to talk about high ceiling, Ty Simpson to the LA Rams. I mean, you talked about great situation, but he gets taken round 1, pick 13. It's certainly, I think the take from this initially is I like the fit. I like the opportunity for him. I don't like that they wasted that high of a pick on him. It seemed incredibly early for a guy when they really don't need him at this point. However, what he brings obviously is his physical upside, his athleticism, his arm strength, his comfort. Like in terms of like pushing the ball down the field, incredibly comfortable. And then the situation he's in is the best situation he could ever ask for. Like I would argue Ty Simpson hit the lottery. He gets $0, which he's not. But if he were to get $0 from the Rams, he should still take it because he essentially won the lottery. He is guaranteed to be developed in the best situation possible by one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play in Matt Stafford and one of the most genius offensive minds. So to me, it's naturally an amazing fit for him. He's not going to start for at least a year, probably 2 years, and he's going to come in after 2 years. And I think he's in a really good likelihood that he's going to be good. And he's going to be really good.
Ty Simpson is the only person that benefits from this pick. Like, who the hell is running the LA Rams? Like, Matt Stafford, sure, if you need a backup quarterback because you're worried about his injury risk, it's not like you're going to win the Super Bowl suddenly with Ty Simpson. And it's not like you don't have other needs either. Devontae Adams will get injured at some point this season. Puka Nacua will be in a scandal already and at some point during the season. This wide receiving room could be fully in trouble. You could have gotten yourself like a Reuben Bain or someone that's going to immediately make an impact on the defensive side of the ball. How many times in a franchise's history can they claim they have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl? It's not every season. So if you've got a shot to win a Super Bowl and your goal isn't to win that Super Bowl, as owners, you should be thrown away from the NFL. You should be forced to sell your team, and you should be like required to be like exiled from society to rethink all the decisions you've made in your life.
Yeah, drafting Ty Simpson that high, you make a valid point, which is you almost, it's not that you wasted like, and I don't want to make it seem like Ty Simpson's not a good option. He is, but you're trying to win right now. You're trying to go to the Super Bowl right now. Your team is ready to do that right now. Ty Simpson is not ready right now. So you've spent a top pick.
Yeah, if they're trying to go quarterback, wait till next year. Like next year is stacked. What are you doing this year? This year, you got to win a Super Bowl. And if you don't, this is going to be the decision that gets your GM fired. If you don't win the Super Bowl, the GM should be fired.
And this leads me to the next guy, because this would have been the right fit for the LA Rams, is going with the third quarterback taken in the draft, Carson Beck, 3rd round, pick 65. That is exactly the moment that the Rams should have been focused on. They should have been focused on a guy who is steady. He's an experienced pocket passer. He's got great recognition. He understands the game great. He's a veteran college player, very reliable. There's some question marks about his arm strength, maybe after injuries, but at the end of the day, You spend a third-round pick on a guy who can still develop for a couple years under Sean McVay's offense with Matthew Stafford training him, and you still could have gotten yourself a receiver and something else in the first couple of rounds to help you right now in the Super Bowl. But Carson Beck does go third round to the Arizona Cardinals. And personally, I actually really like this pick. They're a team that we talked about that we think is a dumpster fire, that they had nothing going. They had no quarterback battle. They have a legitimate battle now. I've watched a ton of tape on Carson Beck, and honestly, I love what I see. I see a very steady, confident pocket passer. I think if you can get him the right protection, he could be a serious lethal threat in the NFL, even day one in his rookie year. He's an older rookie. I think he's almost he played quite a few years in college. I think he was supposed to come out of college last year, like the year before. He had a bad injury. He moves on to Miami. Now he's entering, the NFL a year older, a year wiser. I really like him. He's also like, he's got the tats. He's super cool looking guy. He's got the swag. So personally, love it. I think it's a good situation for him because he has a legitimate shot to become the guy in Arizona.
But is he really starting over Jacoby Brissett?
That's where the question marks happen. Personally, I actually think he's going to get the job. I think that he's going to show enough. And the fact is, like, they know what they have in Jacoby Brissett. We all know what that is. It's mediocrity. And, like, at the end of the day, yes, the Cardinals don't want to rush Beck, but if he shows that he's ready and he looks comfortable enough, I think they're going to put him out there.
See, here's the thing. As soon as they took Jeremiah Love with the number 3 pick and they don't have an offensive line, I think what you do is use tank. Like, I think this third pick of Carson Beck, third round pick, especially if Jacoby Brissett starts any amount of games this season, you might as well just tank and take a quarterback in next year's draft. Like, I think this is different if they got Ty Simpson in the second round, because I think Ty Simpson as a second round pick has significantly higher odds of starting over Jacoby Brissett, and then you at least find out what you're getting out of him. But I think this pick really risks just being a waste if Beck doesn't develop quickly. And then they're just back in the same situation with a relatively high draft pick next year. And we're talking the same thing about which rookie quarterback did they draft. I think they're in this negative spiral. They're doomed to like be pushing a Sisyphus rock up a hill forever. And it's just a garbage organization to track.
So then weren't they a perfect team to take another quarterback in Diego Pavia? Wouldn't he have been a flyer?
Let's go.
Look, I personally don't agree with you in terms of like Beck just being a flyer and they're not taking him seriously. I think he's a serious option.
Well, I mean,
but
seriously.
I do think that they should have pulled a Cleveland Browns and also taken Diego Pavia late, 7th round flyer. Give him a shot. The guy has all the intangibles.
Hold on, before you go to Diego, I think they're actually taking Carson Beck seriously. I think the Arizona Cardinals can't be trusted to make decisions. Like, I think they think Carson Beck might be a chance here, but I think if you were to look at this with a more rational and more sound mind with a longer term view, this is a dumb pick.
But Diego Pavia, this guy should have gone to the Arizona Cardinals. He should have been drafted. He should have been given a real opportunity to fight for a legitimate spot on a team and maybe even prove that he could potentially start. The guy reminds me of Doug Flutie, passed on because of his size, but I think the NFL is going to learn that Diego Pavia has something that not every quarterback has. He's got serious heart.
So he didn't get drafted because he didn't have an agent, and people just didn't like that. But here's my bold take on Diego Pavia. I think we're going to see him start at least one game this season because I think Lamar Jackson is probably going to see an injury. I think this is going to be a chronic thing for him year over year. And I think Diego is going to be worth starting over the backup. Yeah, I think we're going to see Diego Pavia over Huntley.
He has a legitimate shot.
Lamar Jackson goes down. I think that Diego Pavio's style is perfect for the rest of this Baltimore Ravens offense that they've got around him. And I think they got to see what he's really made of. And this is a guy who just went through not being drafted and having his ego. Like, this guy, his villain origin story starts right now, and I'm here for it. We're going to see him at one point this season, and I hope for him that he delivers.
We got a few more quarterbacks that were taken that are worth noting, worth talking about. We got Drew Allar to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a very, very interesting pick. I think it was barely talked about. When I look at the news, I don't see a lot of news there. And honestly, I think this is a guy that people are going to be talking about a lot more when it comes to training camp because he was picked in the third round and it's high enough that he has a legitimate shot. Now, we don't know exactly what's going on with the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, but when I look at the current quarterback situation at the Steelers with Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and now Drew Aller, I think there is a legitimate shot for Aller to either be the backup or even potentially get starting opportunity. Coming out of college, I liked what I saw from Aller. You know, he's got the prototypical size and arm strength. He's got developmental upside. He needs a little improvement in terms of his consistency, but he's going to a pretty busy quarterback room, but I would say a pretty lackluster quarterback room. I don't think there's a lot of talent there outside of, you know, maybe Aaron Rodgers playing, not playing. But out of the other guys that he's legitimately competing with, I think there's a pretty good shot that Drew Aller not only becomes the backup, but maybe actually has some starts in his rookie season.
Yeah, I think this is a recency bias. I think he's fourth on the depth chart. He's not starting over Will Howard. He's not starting over Mason Rudolph, and he's not starting over Aaron Rodgers. And yes, I do think Aaron Rodgers is coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers because this is a guy with a huge ego that wants to have his retirement season. I think that's what they've been essentially projecting this whole time by not finding themselves in crazy quarterback conversations. And last season, they signed Aaron Rodgers almost at like the last possible moment. They're doing it again for the drama. I just think that's what's going to happen.
So then I think we can agree on this. The Pittsburgh Steelers are making the biggest mistake ever by bringing back Aaron Rodgers if they do.
Yeah. He can't even like. I think it's crazy that they signed on receivers that go deep for a guy who's throwing the ball at the lowest average depth of target in the NFL. It's going to happen. I'm going to hate it. And we're going to be talking about this for a whole other year.
Now, well, we got another guy who can stretch out defenses, can move the ball, Cade Klubnik to the New York Jets. Now, I understand their situation with Geno Smith, but honestly, they should be strongly considering playing Cade Klubnik. And I would not be surprised if by midway through the season, Geno Smith is on the bench and Cade Klubnik is starting for the New York Jets. I would be shocked because I wouldn't be shocked, I should say, because Geno Smith is continuing to get worse and worse as his career goes on now. I think he started out awful, had his peak with the Seahawks. He's coming way down. He's back with the Jets. They're a disaster. He is way past his prime now. And I think that we're going to see a lot of Cade Klubnik in the second half of the NFL season. You know, I would say low risk, high reward with him, right? They take him in the fourth round. He's mobile. He's great at creativity. He's good with off script type of stuff. He's going to a situation where the Jets really don't have a good starter. So I like it in terms of for the Jets getting a guy who can play, hopefully. I don't love it for Cade Klubnik because although he's going to get to start, he's going to an organization that has proven time and time again that they are not good at developing quarterbacks.
It's true. But to like back up your point a little bit here, do you know how many teams have quarterbacks to start at least like 15, 16 games a season? It's only about half. So Klubnik is going to get to play, especially because that New York Jets offensive line is rubbish enough that Geno Smith will get injured at some point in the season. And we can play back this clip when that inevitably happens. But this Jets team is such a dumpster fire. Like they went with David Bailey number 2 pick. I know there was a lot of Arvell Reese versus David Bailey conversations there, but then they draft a tight end in the first round next. Like, and this is a tight end that we know can't run block. Like, you have so many other needs as a whole football team that for you to go with, like, this Jets team, man, like this whole organization is just straight up cursed, and they're trying as hard as possible to stay cursed. It's almost like they're trying to optimize for the failure of their organization. And I don't understand why Jets fans continue to like support it. Like, it's not like it's a city that has only one team. You could easily just go to the same stadium and wear a little bit of a different color. This Jets organization makes no sense to me.
Now, to round out this episode, you talk about dumpster fires, and then we got the opposite, the amazing child, the Kansas City Chiefs. They go out, and I would argue this was kind of surprising. I think it was surprising what happened to Garrett Nussmeier in terms of falling all the way to the 7th round. And I would argue it's almost as surprising that the Kansas City Chiefs decided to use their 7th round pick to take Garrett Nussmeier. Now, for this situation, I mean, it's actually amazing for both sides. This is a win-win. It's great for Garrett Nussmeier because he's going into an incredible situation. Not all that different in terms of the Rams, where he's going to a very great organization with a great offense, with a great quarterback that he can learn under. And he's also getting a chance with very low pressure where he can learn in a really good organization. And this organization gets a guy who is actually pretty well equipped and should have gone much higher than the 7th round. From my understanding, the reason Nussmeier fell off so much is some injuries in college that were some concerns, and he somehow didn't show up prepared for a lot of his interviews, which is mind-blowing because his dad is a coach in the NFL for the New Orleans Saints, so I don't understand how he could possibly come unprepared. Now, maybe this is a bit of a Shedeur Sanders situation where he's cocky, he knows his dad knows a lot, and he doesn't need to be prepared. Well, you bit the bullet here, man, because you went down to round 7, but you landed yourself in a great situation. So Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, super confident player, aggressive passer, great in terms of anticipation, really tough player. And then, of course, great situation for him to learn. And, this is really interesting because I think Nussmeier actually has a chance to play and start this year because Patrick Mahomes is probably not going to be ready for the NFL season, at least for week 1, week 2, maybe even week 3. And with that being said, you have no real quarterback battle when I'm looking at this. I mean, Justin Fields, what I saw from him last year tells me more than enough. He can't really play. He can't be trusted on a regular basis. Garrett Nussmeier has a legitimate shot to be a day 1 starter.
So call me crazy for this. I'm still not ready to give up on Justin Fields. I think this is a situation.
You're crazy.
Yeah, like I think last year the coaching in the New York Jets, like this was the least imaginative offense of all time, and you have a running quarterback. Like I think they just completely misused Justin Fields. Like at the beginning of the season, look at Justin Fields' numbers. He was one of the best offensive weapons, full stop. And then suddenly there was like, no, we're just going to stop being successful completely. And they just started calling the most uncreative offense in recent memory. I think that with Andy Reid at the helm, with a weapon like Justin Fields, I do think it gives him more of an opportunity. But I also agree with the take that Nussmeier couldn't have found a much better landing spot. He's about to learn from behind the best Kansas City quarterback of all time, Justin Fields. And I'm kidding. But like, as we said in the past, like Patrick Mahomes, there's a good chance this injury like keeps him sidelined for a pretty long amount of time. And it's possible the version of him that comes back is a shell of who he used to be. So this is actually going to be a fun quarterback room to watch. This one I like.
Appreciate everyone listening. We got tons more stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking QB battles later on in the offseason when we get closer There is so much more to talk about. Please like and subscribe.
Also, come fight us in the comments. If there's things you disagree with, we want to talk to you. Let us know what you think.